Stop chasing opportunities. Let them chase you. Stop begging for recognition. Command it through excellence. Stop waiting for your breakthrough. Realize it's already breaking through for you. The problem isn't that the world doesn't need what you have. The problem is you don't understand how needed you really are. Your name is currency in kingdoms you've never visited. My friend, I want you to lean in close, because what I'm about to share with you is going to revolutionize how you see your future. By the end of our time together today, you'll understand why your current invisibility is actually your preparation period, and how to position yourself so that when your name comes up in those rooms, and it will, you'll be ready to walk through the door with confidence and competence. You see, I've had the incredible privilege of advising presidents across 6 continents, training leaders in over 100 nations, and building movements that have outlasted my lifetime. I've sat in rooms with prime ministers, corporate executives, and world changers. But none of that happened because I was the smartest person in the room. It happened because I learned the secret of how names travel before bodies do. It happened because I discovered the mysterious laws that govern how influence really works in this world. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, someone somewhere is feeling overlooked despite having incredible gifts burning inside them. Someone is battling imposter syndrome, wondering if they're really qualified enough for the dreams God has placed in their heart. Someone is frustrated, tired of waiting for the right opportunity while wrestling with the fear of self-promotion, not wanting to look arrogant or pushy. But here's what I need you to understand. What I'm going to teach you today isn't about networking tricks or marketing yourself. This isn't about fake it till you make it strategies or manipulating your way to the top. This is about understanding the spiritual and practical laws that govern how influence really works, and positioning yourself in perfect alignment with those laws so that success becomes inevitable. You see, most people have it backwards. They think they need to make noise to be heard, push to be noticed, fight to be recognized. But the most powerful people I know, the ones whose names carry weight in rooms they've never entered, they understand something different. They understand that your reputation precedes you, that excellence speaks louder than words, and that the right positioning attracts the right opportunities like a magnet attracts metal. Let me take you behind the scenes of how this really works. Because the stories I'm about to share will completely shatter everything you think you know about success, recognition, and breakthrough. These aren't just inspiring tales, they're case studies in how the universe rewards those who understand its laws. I want to tell you about a man named Marcus, and I need you to really hear this story because it's going to challenge everything you believe about how success happens. Marcus worked as a janitor in a large Fortune 500 corporation for 15 long years. Every single night, while everyone else went home to their families, to their dinners, to their entertainment, Marcus stayed behind in those empty corporate halls, cleaning offices, emptying trash cans, mopping floors, and wiping down windows. Now, most people in Marcus's position would have seen themselves as invisible, unimportant, just another face in the crowd of people who keep the machine running but never get credit for it. But Marcus had something that separated him from every other janitor who had ever walked those halls. He had the eyes of an owner, even though he didn't own anything. You see, Marcus didn't just clean, he observed. He noticed patterns. He saw inefficiencies. While he was emptying the trash in the accounting department, he noticed they were throwing away hundreds of pages of misprinted reports every week. While he was cleaning the IT department, he saw how the printer on the 3rd floor constantly ran out of toner, causing delays and frustration. While he was mopping the floors in the customer service area, he overheard the same complaints coming in day after day. But here's what made Marcus extraordinary. Instead of just observing and going home, he started solving. Not because anyone asked him to, not because it was in his job description, not because he was getting paid extra, but because he understood something powerful. Excellence is never wasted, and solutions always find their way to the right ears. Marcus started leaving little notes. Not complaints, anyone can complain. Not criticisms, anyone can point out what's wrong, but solutions. Dear facilities manager, he would write, I noticed the copy machine in the West Wing jams every morning around 9:30. After watching for a few weeks, I realized it happens when people don't align the paper properly in the tray. Maybe we could put a simple instruction card next to it showing the correct way to load paper. I even designed one if you'd like to see it. Or, dear IT department, I've observed that the printer on the 3rd floor runs out of toner every Tuesday like clockwork. The staff gets frustrated because they can't finish their weekly reports. Perhaps we could check it every Monday and replace the toner before it runs out. I've tracked the pattern for 2 months if you'd like to see the data. Or, dear customer service manager, I couldn't help but notice that customers call in confused about billing statements every month around the 15th. While I was cleaning, I overheard the same questions being asked over and over. What if we added a simple, frequently asked questions section to the statement that addresses the most common questions? I've been keeping a list of what people ask about most. At first, nobody paid attention. The notes were filed away, forgotten, ignored. But Marcus didn't stop. He wasn't doing this for recognition. He was doing it because he saw problems and he had solutions. He was doing it because excellence was becoming a habit, and habits have a way of creating their own momentum. Slowly, quietly, things started improving. The copy machine stopped jamming because someone finally put up that instruction card. The 3rd floor printer was always ready because IT started checking it on Mondays. Customer complaints dropped because the billing statements became clearer. The building ran smoother. Departments became more efficient. Problems that had persisted for years started disappearing. Then one day, something beautiful happened. The CEO called an executive meeting about improving company efficiency and reducing operational costs. They were looking at budgets, analyzing departments, trying to figure out why some areas of the company were performing better than others. And someone said, "You know, our facilities have been running better than ever lately. Our efficiency reports are the best they've been in 5 years. What changed?" That's when Marcus's name first came up in a room he had never entered. "Well," said the facilities manager, "there's this janitor named Marcus who's been sending us these incredibly thoughtful suggestions. Every recommendation he's made has saved us time and money. He sees things the rest of us miss." The CEO was intrigued. "Bring me everything this Marcus has suggested," he said. When they compiled all of Marcus's notes, all his observations, all his solutions, it filled a binder 3 inches thick. The CEO spent an entire weekend reading through Marcus's insights, and he realized something profound. This janitor understood their business better than most of their managers. Monday morning, Marcus got called to the CEO's office. He thought he was in trouble. Instead, the CEO said, "Marcus, I've been reading your suggestions for 2 days straight. You've identified problems I didn't even know we had and provided solutions that have saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have one question for you. Why are you cleaning floors when you should be running departments?" Within 6 months, Marcus was promoted to facilities manager. He wasn't qualified on paper. He didn't have an MBA. He didn't have management experience. He didn't have the credentials. But he had something more valuable. He had proven his worth through excellence in the unseen places. Within 2 years, he was director of operations. 5 years later, he was vice president of process improvement. Today, Marcus runs his own consulting company, helping Fortune 500 corporations improve their efficiency and reduce operational costs. His name is spoken in boardrooms across the country, not because he chased opportunities, but because he understood something that most people never learn. Your name travels fastest when it's attached to solutions, not needs. You see, Marcus wasn't trying to get promoted. He wasn't networking his way up the ladder. He wasn't playing politics or kissing up to the right people. He was simply being excellent at whatever he was doing, solving problems without being asked, adding value without expecting recognition. And excellence has a voice of its own. Excellence speaks louder than words. Excellence creates conversations in rooms you've never entered. Now let me share something deeply personal with you, because I want you to understand that this principle works regardless of your background, your education, your connections, or your current circumstances. 25 years ago, I was nobody special. Just a young preacher's kid from the Bahamas with enormous dreams and embarrassingly small resources. I remember sitting in my tiny one-bedroom apartment, staring at the walls, wondering if I would ever make a real difference in the world. I had been rejected by so many organizations, turned down by so many churches, dismissed by so many people that I started to believe maybe I wasn't called for greatness after all. Maybe I had misunderstood God's plan for my life. Maybe I was destined to be ordinary. The bills were piling up. My wife and I were struggling to make ends meet. I was working multiple jobs just to keep the lights on. I would see other preachers, other leaders, other people my age who seemed to be moving forward while I felt stuck in neutral. I started to question everything, my calling, my abilities, my future. But something happened during that season of waiting that changed everything. Instead of focusing on what I needed from the world, I started focusing on what I could give to the world. Instead of asking, when will I get my breakthrough? I started asking, how can I be a breakthrough for someone else? I began studying leadership not just for myself, but because I saw how desperately the world needed real leaders. I looked around and saw politics without principle, business without ethics, religion without relationship. I saw people in positions of authority who had titles but no character, power but no purpose, influence but no integrity. I realized that while I was sitting in my apartment feeling sorry for myself, there were organizations, communities, even nations crying out for someone who understood the true principles of leadership. There were people in positions of power who were failing because nobody had ever taught them how to lead with wisdom, how to influence with integrity, how to succeed without compromising their soul. So I made a decision that transformed my life. I decided to become the leader I was looking for in the world. I decided to develop the expertise that the world desperately needed, even if nobody was asking for it yet. I decided to prepare for opportunities that didn't even exist yet. I didn't have a platform, so I created one. I didn't have an audience, so I spoke to empty chairs, preparing for the day when those chairs would be filled with people hungry for truth. I didn't have credibility, so I built it one principle at a time, one insight at a time, one life change at a time. I started writing down every leadership principle I learned, every insight I gained, every breakthrough I experienced. Not because anyone was asking for it, but because I believed that someday, somewhere, someone would desperately need exactly what I was learning. I filled notebook after notebook with thoughts on leadership, governance, purpose, potential, and personal development. I began volunteering to speak at small churches, community centers, youth groups, anywhere they would have me. Not for money, there wasn't any. Not for recognition, nobody knew who I was. But because I was building something more valuable than a bank account and more lasting than fame, I was building a reputation for excellence, integrity, and life-changing truth. I remember speaking to audiences of 5 people, 10 people, sometimes just 3 people, but I prepared for those small audiences like I was speaking to stadiums. I gave those few people the same excellence, the same passion, the same life-changing content that I would later give to presidents and prime ministers. Because here's what I understood even then: how you do anything is how you do everything. Excellence in small things prepares you for excellence in big things. Faithfulness with few prepares you for responsibility over many. Your private discipline determines your public success. Then one day, something miraculous happened. I was at home when the phone rang. On the other end was a voice I didn't recognize, representing an organization I'd never heard of. They said, "Dr. Munroe, we've been hearing about your teaching on leadership. Your name keeps coming up in our planning meetings. We have a leadership conference coming up in Jamaica, and we'd like to invite you to be one of our keynote speakers." I was stunned. I asked how they had heard about me. They said, "People who attended your sessions in Nassau have been talking. Word has been spreading throughout the Caribbean about your insights on leadership. We've been looking for someone who really understands these principles, and your name keeps coming up." What I didn't know was that while I was speaking to those small audiences, while I was being faithful in those tiny venues, people were talking. My name had been traveling in conversations I knew nothing about. Seeds I had planted in small rooms were growing into opportunities in big rooms. That one invitation changed everything. It led to another invitation, then another. Soon I was speaking in different countries, training government officials, consulting with business leaders. Within 5 years, I was addressing the United Nations. Within 10 years, I was advising presidents and prime ministers across 6 continents. But here's the key: it didn't happen because I was chasing those opportunities. It happened because while I was being faithful in the small rooms, excellence was speaking for me in the big rooms. While I was serving the few, My reputation was preparing me for the many. Years later, I learned something that still gives me chills when I think about it. While I was struggling to pay rent in that tiny apartment, while I was wondering if anyone would ever need what I had to offer, presidents and prime ministers were already asking their advisors, where can we find someone who really understands true leadership? Where can we find someone who can teach our people how to lead with integrity? My name was being spoken in rooms I'd never imagined entering, and I didn't even know it. While I was preparing in private, God was preparing opportunities in public. While I was developing in the dark, doors were being opened in the light. Let me tell you about Sarah, because her story will show you how these same principles work in everyday life, no matter what your profession, no matter what your dreams. Sarah was a single mother working at a small law firm as a secretary. She had always dreamed of becoming a lawyer herself, but between working full-time and raising her 8-year-old daughter, it seemed impossible. Every day, she watched lawyers come and go, handling cases, making arguments, changing lives. She sat at the front desk, answering phones, filing documents, scheduling appointments, feeling invisible, unimportant, just another face in the crowd. She felt like she was on the outside looking in at a world she could never enter. But Sarah had something that set her apart from every other secretary who had ever worked at that firm. She genuinely cared about the clients. While other staff members saw clients as interruptions or problems to be managed, Sarah saw them as people going through difficult times who needed help and hope. When clients called confused about their cases, instead of just transferring them to whoever was available, Sarah started learning enough about each case to actually help them. She studied legal terminology in her spare time, not because anyone asked her to, but because she wanted to be more useful to the people who trusted the firm with their problems. She began staying late, not to earn overtime, but to organize files better, to create systems that would help the lawyers be more effective. She noticed that lawyers were constantly scrambling to find documents, missing important deadlines, and losing track of case details. So she created comprehensive case management systems, timeline trackers, and deadline reminder systems. Sarah started attending legal seminars on weekends, not because it was required, but because she wanted to better understand the work being done around her. She read legal journals during her lunch breaks. She studied court procedures in the evenings after her daughter went to bed. Most importantly, she did all of this without expecting recognition, without demanding promotion, without making a big deal about her extra efforts. She was simply being excellent at whatever she was doing, solving problems without being asked, adding value without expecting reward. The attorneys started noticing cases that Sarah managed ran smoother. Clients who dealt with Sarah were happier. The office operated more efficiently when Sarah was there. But she wasn't doing it for recognition. She was doing it because excellence had become her standard. Then one day, during a partners meeting, they were discussing the firm's improved efficiency and client satisfaction scores. Someone said, our clients have been happier lately and we're missing fewer deadlines. What's changed? That's when Sarah's name came up for the first time in that room. Well, said one of the junior partners, Sarah has really transformed how we manage our cases. She knows more about our procedures than some of our junior lawyers. She's created systems that have saved us countless hours and prevented several major mistakes. The senior partner was intrigued. He started paying attention to Sarah's work, observing how she handled clients, how she managed cases, how she solved problems. What he saw amazed him. This secretary had developed expertise that rivaled their associates, had created systems that improved their entire operation, and had done it all without being asked. After 6 months of observation, he called Sarah into his office. He said, Sarah, I've been watching you for the past year. You've transformed how this office operates. You understand legal procedures better than some lawyers I know. You care about our clients like they're your own family. We've been discussing something in our partners' meetings, and your name keeps coming up. He paused, then continued. We want to pay for your law school education and guarantee you a position here as an associate when you graduate. But more than that, we want you to help us create a model for how law firms should really operate. Your insights could revolutionize how we serve our clients. Today, Sarah, is not just a successful attorney. See, she's a partner in that same firm. She's spoken at legal conferences about client relations and case management. She's consulted with law firms across the country about creating more efficient operations. Her name is mentioned in legal journals, not because she chased recognition, but because excellence in the unseen places eventually shows up in seen places. But let me tell you about James, because his story demonstrates how these principles work even when you're starting from the very bottom. James was homeless, not temporarily displaced, not down on his luck for a few weeks, but truly homeless for over 2 years. He lived under bridges, in shelters when space was available, anywhere he could find protection from the elements. Most people in James's situation would have been focused on survival, on getting through each day, on finding their next meal. And James was concerned about those things too. But James had something that homelessness couldn't take away from him. He had a gift for understanding people and solving problems. Even while homeless, James started volunteering at the very shelter where he sometimes stayed. Not because he had to, not because anyone asked him to, but because he saw problems that needed solving and he had time to solve them. He noticed that the shelter's intake process was chaotic, that people were getting frustrated and sometimes leaving before getting help. So James, with no official authority, no title, no recognition, started organizing the intake process. He created simple systems for tracking who needed what services. He helped new arrivals understand how the shelter worked. He mediated conflicts between residents. He became the unofficial problem solver, the go-to person when things went wrong. The shelter director noticed that operations ran smoother when James was around. Fewer conflicts occurred. New residents adjusted better. The atmosphere was calmer, more hopeful. So she asked James if he would consider becoming an official volunteer coordinator. James threw himself into the role. He studied social work principles in the public library. He attended free training sessions on conflict resolution and social services. He learned about grant writing, nonprofit management, and community organizing, all while still homeless himself. Within a year, the shelter's efficiency had improved dramatically. Client satisfaction was at an all-time high. Other shelters started asking for advice on how to improve their operations, and James's name kept coming up in those conversations. Then one day, the city's Department of Social Services called the shelter looking for someone to help redesign their homeless services program. "We need someone who really understands this population," they said. "Someone who knows what works and what doesn't." Guess whose name came up? Within 2 years, James went from being homeless to being the city's director of homeless services. Today, he oversees a budget of millions of dollars and has helped thousands of people transition from homelessness to stable housing. His innovative programs have been studied and replicated in cities across the nation. James's name is now spoken in rooms he never imagined entering, city halls, state capitals, federal agencies. Not because he had connections, not because he had credentials, not because he had advantages, but because he understood that your current circumstances don't determine your future contribution. Excellence rises regardless of where it starts. Now, these stories aren't just inspiring tales to make you feel good. They reveal 3 unchangeable laws that govern how your name travels, how influence really works, how breakthrough actually happens. I want to break these laws down for you, because understanding them will change everything about how you approach your life, your career, your future. The first law is fundamental. Your name travels fastest when it's attached to solutions, not needs. This is where most people get it completely wrong. They spend their time talking about what they need. They need a job, they need recognition, they need an opportunity, they need a break, they need someone to believe in them. But here's the truth that will set you free. The marketplace doesn't reward need, it rewards value. The world doesn't pay attention to what you lack, it pays attention to what you provide. Opportunities don't go to the neediest people, they go to the most useful people. Think about it this way. When you have a problem, whose name comes to mind first? It's not the person who talks the most about their struggles. It's not the person who promotes themselves the loudest. It's not even necessarily the person with the most credentials. It's the person who has a track record of providing solutions, of making things better, of solving problems similar to the one you're facing. When companies need consultants, They don't look for the neediest person or the person who wants it most. They look for the person who has proven they can deliver results. When organizations need leaders, they don't choose based on who has the biggest dreams or who talks the best game. They choose based on who has demonstrated they can solve problems and produce outcomes. This is why Marcus went from janitor to CEO. This is why I went from struggling preacher to international advisor. This is why Sarah went from secretary to partner. This is why James went from homeless to director. We all made the same critical shift from what can I get to what can I give, from being need focused to being solution oriented. When you make that shift, something powerful happens in how people see you and talk about you. Instead of being someone who points out problems, you become someone who provides answers. Instead of being someone who drains energy from situations, you become someone who brings solutions and hope. Instead of being someone who asks what the world can do for them, you become someone who demonstrates what they can do for the world. Here's how you apply this starting right now, today, in whatever situation you find yourself. In every environment you enter, in every conversation you have, in every responsibility you carry, ask yourself these life-changing questions. What problem exists here that I can solve? What value can I add that no one else is adding? How can I make this situation better? What can I give before I think about what I might get? When you walk into your workplace tomorrow morning, don't think about what you need from that job. Think about what that job needs from you that it's not getting. What inefficiencies exist that you could address? What problems persist that you could solve? What improvements could you implement that would make everyone's life better? When you're in conversations with people, don't focus on impressing them with who you are or what you've accomplished. Focus on understanding what challenges they're facing and how you might help. Listen for problems you could solve, needs you could meet, value you could add. When you're part of any organization, any team, any community, look for ways to make that entity more effective, more efficient, more successful. Not because it's your job, not because you're getting paid extra, but because excellence is becoming your standard and problem solving is becoming your reputation. The second law is equally transformative. Excellence in the unseen creates opportunities in the seen. Character is built in private but revealed in public. The work you do when nobody's watching determines the opportunities you get when everybody's watching. Most people want public recognition without private preparation. They want to be discovered without doing anything discovery-worthy. They want to be promoted without proving they're ready for promotion. They want opportunities to come to them without demonstrating they deserve those opportunities. But here's how the universe really works. There are no shortcuts to genuine, lasting success. The cosmos has a way of testing your character in small things before trusting you with big things. How you handle your current responsibilities, no matter how small or insignificant they seem, is preparing you for your future opportunities, no matter how big or significant they might become. Sarah wasn't trying to become a lawyer when she was organizing those files and creating those systems. She was simply being excellent at being a secretary. But excellence is never wasted. Every detail she perfected, every system she improved, every client she helped was building a reputation that eventually opened doors she never expected. Marcus wasn't trying to become a CEO when he was leaving those solution-oriented notes. He was simply being excellent at being a janitor. But every problem he solved, every improvement he suggested, every bit of value he added was creating conversations in rooms he'd never entered. This is why I tell people everywhere I go, make your invisible work visible, not through self-promotion or bragging, but through consistent excellence that speaks for itself. When you're excellent in private, that excellence eventually shows up in public. When you're faithful in small things, you position yourself for big things. When you do more than you are paid for, you'll eventually be paid for more than you do. The compound interest of daily faithfulness is absolutely incredible. Every day you choose excellence over mediocrity. You're making deposits in an account that will pay dividends you can't even imagine. But you have to be patient. You have to trust the process. You have to believe that consistency beats intensity every single time. Let me make this practical for you. Tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions that will transform how you approach tomorrow. What did I do today that added genuine value to someone else's life? How did I exceed expectations in my current responsibilities? What can I do tomorrow to be even more excellent than I was today? These simple questions will train your mind to think like a person whose name travels in positive directions. They'll help you develop the habits that create the reputation that opens the doors that change your life. Start keeping what I call an excellence journal. Every evening, write down 3 things you did that day that went beyond what was expected, required, or demanded. Maybe you helped a coworker solve a problem. Maybe you cleaned up a mess that wasn't yours. Maybe you stayed late to finish a project properly instead of rushing through it. At first, you might struggle to find 3 things. But as you develop the habit of looking for opportunities to exceed expectations, you'll start finding them everywhere. And as you start acting on those opportunities consistently, people will start noticing. Your reputation will begin to shift from someone who does what they have to do to someone who does what needs to be done. The 3rd law will completely change how you see your future. Strategic positioning puts you in the right place when your name comes up. You see, it's not enough to be excellent. You have to be excellent in the right places, around the right people, solving the right problems. This isn't about using people or being fake or manipulative. This is about understanding your unique value proposition and then positioning yourself in environments where that value is most needed, most appreciated, and most likely to create opportunities. Think about it this way. You might be the most amazing ice cream salesman in the world, but if you're trying to sell ice cream in Alaska in December, your excellence won't matter much. You might have incredible solutions to offer, but if you're in an environment where those solutions aren't valued, needed, or understood, your name won't travel very far. Strategic positioning means getting crystal clear on what makes you unique, and then placing yourself in environments where that uniqueness is valued. It means building authentic relationships with people who can benefit from what you offer and who you can learn from in return. It means serving your way up instead of pushing your way up. This is what I learned when I transitioned from just being a good preacher to becoming a leadership expert. I realized that while the world has thousands of preachers, it desperately needed people who understood the true principles of leadership based on character, purpose, and service rather than position, power, and politics. So I positioned myself not just as someone who could deliver a good sermon, but as someone who could develop better leaders. I started studying leadership in every context: business, government, nonprofit, sports, military. I learned from successful leaders and from failed leaders. I studied what worked and what didn't work across cultures, industries, and generations. That positioning changed everything. Instead of competing with thousands of preachers for church speaking opportunities, I was positioning myself in a much smaller pool of people who really understood transformational leadership. My unique combination of spiritual insight and practical leadership knowledge became my strategic advantage. Here's how you apply strategic positioning starting right now. First, get absolutely clear on what makes you unique. What combination of skills, experiences, perspectives, and passions do you bring that no one else brings exactly the same way? What problems are you uniquely qualified to solve? What value do you provide that others might provide differently or not at all? Don't just think about your professional skills. Think about your life experiences, your personality traits, your unique perspective on the world. Maybe you're great with technology and you're also deeply empathetic. That's a rare combination that could be incredibly valuable in creating user-friendly tech solutions. Maybe you understand both business and education that could position you to help companies develop better training programs. Second, identify the rooms where your name should be spoken. If you're gifted with technology, your name should be traveling in conversations about digital transformation, automation, or tech innovation. If you're talented at bringing people together, your name should be coming up when organizations need team builders, community organizers, or conflict mediators. If you're skilled at communication, your name should be mentioned when companies need spokespeople, trainers, or content creators. If you understand both finance and psychology, your name should come up in discussions about financial counseling or behavioral economics. Third, start building bridges before you need to cross them. Begin developing relationships with people in those rooms now, not when you need something from them. Attend industry events, join professional organizations, volunteer for causes you care about. But remember, always go to give, not to get, Go to serve, not to sell yourself. The most powerful positioning happens when you become known as the person who helps other people succeed. When your name is associated with other people's victories, when people know that connecting with you somehow makes their lives better, that's when your name starts traveling at the speed of trust. Look for ways to support the success of people who are already in the rooms you want to enter. Share their content, promote their events, volunteer for their causes, help them solve their problems. Not as a strategy to use them, but as a genuine desire to add value to their work. When you approach relationships this way, something beautiful happens. People want to help you succeed because you've been instrumental in their success. They want to open doors for you because you've helped them walk through doors. They want to speak your name in their rooms because your name is associated with positive outcomes. Now, knowledge without application is just entertainment, and I didn't come here today to entertain you. I came to transform you. So let me give you specific practical ways to put these 3 laws to work in your life, starting today, starting right now. First, I want you to begin what I call a daily excellence audit. Every evening for the next 30 days, I want you to review your day and identify your current rooms, the places where you already have influence, no matter how small that influence might seem. Maybe it's your workplace, maybe it's your family, maybe it's a community organization you're part of, maybe it's your neighborhood, maybe it's an online community you participate in. Look at those rooms honestly and ask yourself, how can I be more excellent here? What problems exist in these spaces that I could solve? How can I add more value tomorrow than I did today? Start there. Excel in your current rooms before you worry about getting into new ones. Master your current responsibilities before you ask for new responsibilities. Prove your worth where you are before you expect to be moved to where you want to be. Here's a 24-hour excellence challenge I want you to try this week. For the next 24 hours, in every interaction you have, with every task you perform, with every person you encounter, ask yourself, how can I exceed expectations here? How can I do this better than it's ever been done? How can I leave this person, place, or situation better than I found it? You'll be amazed at what happens when you approach just one day with that mindset. People will notice, opportunities will appear, conversations will shift, your reputation will begin to transform. And remember, reputation is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Make sure they're saying something worth repeating. Next, I want you to train your mind for solution-oriented thinking. Most people are problem-focused. They see what's wrong, what's missing, what's broken, what's not working. They can tell you everything that's going wrong, but nothing about how to make it right. But successful people, people whose names travel in positive directions, are solution-focused. They see problems as opportunities waiting to be seized. They see challenges as chances to add value. They see difficulties as doors to demonstrate their worth. Starting tomorrow morning, when you encounter any problem at work, at home, in your community, in your relationships, don't just complain about it, ignore it, or pass it off to someone else. Ask yourself, what would a solution look like? How could this be fixed? What would I do if this were my business, my organization, my responsibility? Then if possible, become part of the solution. Don't wait for someone to ask you. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start solving problems and watch how quickly your reputation shifts from someone who points out what's wrong to someone who makes things right. I also want you to adopt what I call the value-first approach to every interaction. Before you meet with anyone, before you go to any event, before you enter any conversation, before you start any project, ask yourself, what value can I bring to this situation? How can I make this person's day better? What can I give before I think about what I might get? When you approach relationships this way, everything changes. People want to be around you because you make their lives better. They remember you because you added value to their experience. They talk about you because you gave them something worth sharing. That's how your name begins to travel in circles you never imagined reaching. Here's a practical exercise. For the next week, before every meeting, every phone call, every conversation, spend 2 minutes asking yourself how you can add value to that interaction. Maybe you can share a helpful resource. Maybe you can make a useful introduction. Maybe you can offer to help with a project. Maybe you can simply listen with complete attention and care. Finally, develop your strategic positioning plan. Take some time this weekend to sit down and really think about the rooms you want your name spoken in 5 years from now. What industries interest you? What types of organizations could benefit from your unique combination of skills and experiences? What leaders do you respect and admire? What causes are you passionate about? Once you identify those rooms, start building authentic relationships that matter. This isn't networking in the fake, transact,